Listen carefully, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a warning most men will ignore until it's too late. He was dying, his kidneys were failing, and doctors told him he wouldn't make it without a transplant. Everyone around him panicked, except his wife. She didn't hesitate. No questions, no negotiations. She stepped forward and said, "Test me." And when the results came back, she was a match. The odds were almost impossible. Yet she became his miracle. She held his hand through the procedures, signed documents with shaking fingers, and whispered, "You're not alone. I'll carry you if I have to." People praised her. Family called her an angel. Even the nurses said they'd never seen devotion like hers. And the night before the surgery, she sat beside him as he slept, watching the man she loved breathe, wondering if he knew the depth of what she was giving. Not just an organ, but her life, her future, her safety. Because when a woman loves, she doesn't love halfway. She gives everything, even the parts of her body God intended for her alone. The surgery lasted hours. When he woke, she was still asleep beside him, pale, fragile, but smiling. Her first words were, "Are you okay?" Not, "Do you love me?" Not, "Will you stay?" Just, "Are you okay?" And he promised her, swore to her, that he would never forget what she'd done, that he would honor her sacrifice, that he would love her with every second he had been given. But men forget, not because they're cruel, but because comfort makes memory fade. And months later, when his body grew stronger and hers was still recovering, he stopped thanking her. Stopped noticing how she flinched when she lifted heavy objects, stopped seeing how tired she became halfway up the stairs. His life returned to normal. Hers never did. The first sign was subtle. A message at midnight, flipped screen tucked away, a smile he tried to swallow. She saw the spark in his eyes, the same spark he once reserved only for her. Her heart tightened. Not because she suspected betrayal, but because she knew, once a man forgets gratitude, he forgets loyalty. Let me ask you something. If you were her, how much of yourself would you give to someone who might not protect your heart? Tell me in the comments. And if this touched you, like, share, and subscribe. Someone you know needs to hear this. At first, she ignored the signs. Because when love has cost you something as sacred as your own body, you cling to the belief that it must be worth it. She told herself he was just happy, relieved to be alive, grateful for a second chance. But deep inside, a quiet ache began to grow. He went out more, stayed late at work, started wearing cologne again. Not the one she chose with him years ago. A new one, musky, secretive. When she asked how his day was, his answers became shorter. He didn't look her in the eyes the way he used to. The warmth was still there, just not for her. One night, as she folded his shirts, a small slip of paper fell out. A receipt, 2 drinks, 1 dessert. A restaurant they used to love, a place they once promised would always be their spot. But he hadn't taken her there in months. Her chest tightened, not with jealousy, but with confusion. Because how could someone whose life you saved choose someone else to celebrate with? Still, she said nothing. She told herself she was being dramatic. She blamed stress, recovery, anything but the truth. Because the truth is simple. When you have sacrificed everything, admitting betrayal feels like admitting foolishness, and she wasn't ready to see herself as a fool. Not yet. Then came the message. She only saw it for a second. His phone lit up while he showered. A woman's name, a heart emoji, the kind of message that doesn't need translation. Pain doesn't need a language. She didn't cry, not immediately. She just sat on the bed with her hand pressed against the scar beneath her ribs. The physical reminder of what she gave. It throbbed like her body was trying to warn her long before her heart could listen. When he came out, she asked gently, "Is there someone else?" He hesitated, and hesitation speaks louder than confession. He said, "It's not serious. We were just talking." But she could hear what he didn't say. "You don't hide conversations you're proud of." Her voice trembled. "I gave you my kidney." He didn't answer, not because he didn't hear her, but because he had no defense. See, some men believe that once they've received devotion, they no longer have to earn it. They treat loyalty like a lifetime subscription, something guaranteed, no matter how poorly they behave. But here's the truth most never accept. Sacrifice is not ownership, and love is not debt. She wasn't looking for repayment. She was looking for respect, the kind that grows deeper after hardship, the kind that says, I see what you did for me, and I choose you because of it. Instead, he chose novelty, validation, attention from someone who didn't know his scars, and therefore didn't understand his soul. And the cruelest part, he didn't even feel guilty. Not enough to stop, not enough to apologize, not enough to fight for what she had already died a little to save. That night, she lay awake, listening to him breathe beside her, his body whole because of her, his heart wandering because of someone else. She placed her hand over her scar, feeling the pulse beneath the stitches, and realized, you can share your flesh with someone and still never be close to them. Let me ask you, if the person you saved betrayed you, would you stay or would you walk away? Tell me in the comments. And if this resonates, subscribe, and send this to a man who needs to understand the cost of a woman's sacrifice. The days that followed felt unreal, like she was walking through someone else's life, a stranger inside her own home. She moved quietly, not out of fear, but because she was listening to every detail, every silence, every shift in his tone. He grew more defensive, more distant, yet strangely more careful, erasing messages, changing passwords, hiding his phone beneath pillows as if truth could be buried under cotton. She wasn't angry, not yet. She was stunned, because it wasn't just betrayal. It was betrayal after she had already chosen his life over her comfort, his future over her safety. One afternoon, she visited her doctor for a routine checkup. The nurse smiled. I'm glad to see him doing well. You're both so lucky. She nodded, but something inside her broke. Lucky. The word felt cruel. She had given him life, but in doing so, she had lost her peace. On the way home, she replayed the promises he made in the hospital, the way he held her hand, the trembling vow. I'll never take you for granted again. But memory means nothing to a man who values excitement over devotion. When she returned, he wasn't home. His shoes were gone, his favorite shirt. And there it was, the cologne she didn't choose lingering in the hallway like a confession. She sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the small scar on her arm from where the IV once lived, imagining the surgeon's voice, the fluorescent lights, the cold metal tools that divided her flesh so he could keep breathing, and now he was breathing for someone else. Her phone buzzed, a message from a friend, a photo, not of him, but of her, the other woman, young, smiling, carefree, no scars, no history, no sacrifice. Something inside her went still, not rage, not sadness, just clarity. She finally saw that his betrayal didn't begin with the affair. It began the moment he stopped cherishing the life she'd given him and started believing he deserved more. Men often confuse desire with destiny. They chase novelty because it makes them feel powerful, interesting, alive. But here's the truth. Nothing requires more strength than loving the person who sees every flaw and still stays. Late that night, he walked in, smelling like promises he'd never keep. She didn't ask where he'd been. She didn't beg. She simply looked at him with eyes no longer blinded by loyalty. He felt it immediately. The shift, the silent boundary, the quiet awakening. He tried to speak, but she held up a hand, not to silence him, but to protect herself from words she could no longer believe. Her voice was soft, steady, strong. Do you remember the night before surgery? He nodded, eyes wide like a child caught in a lie too big to hide. You said my love saved you, she paused. I didn't realize you'd only borrowed your life to give it to someone else. There was no screaming, no broken dishes, just truth. Simple, quiet, undeniable. And sometimes silence is the loudest goodbye. Before we continue, tell me, Is betrayal worse when it comes from the person you risked everything to save? Leave your answer in the comments, and if this story hits your chest, like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear what real sacrifice is worth. She moved into a small apartment. Nothing fancy, just quiet, clean, and hers. For the first time in years, the walls didn't echo with disappointment. There were no unanswered questions sitting on the couch, no half-truths sleeping beside her. Just peace. A kind of peace that felt strange at first, like meeting a part of herself she'd forgotten existed. The world didn't collapse when she left him. It actually began to open. Morning sunlight felt warmer. Coffee tasted richer. Even silence felt like company instead of punishment. She learned that starting over is never the same as starting from nothing, because she carried with her strength built from survival. Meanwhile, he was drowning, not in sadness, but in the weight of his own choices. The woman he cheated with disappeared the moment things got real. She liked him because he was exciting, a forbidden thrill, but she never signed up to walk through life with a man who couldn't honor commitment. The same patterns that betrayed his wife now betrayed him. Isn't it funny? People who can't be loyal always think they'll be the exception when someone else betrays them. But life is poetic. It always brings balance. He tried messaging her, calling, apologizing, sending long texts about regret, love, second chances. She read them, not with anger, but with clarity, the kind you gain only after your heart breaks, heals, and learns. His words were soft, but hers were stronger. "Thank you for the lessons," she replied, "but I don't need them anymore." She didn't hate him. Hate would mean he still had power. She felt something deeper, indifference, the kind that comes when the soul finally closes a door, not with force, but with peace. She focused on rebuilding, new routines, new friends, new strength. She joined a support group for organ donors, people who gave something priceless without asking for anything in return. In their stories, she found belonging. In her story, they found courage. One evening, a man approached her. After the meeting, not with flirtation, but with familiarity. His wife had donated a kidney to him years ago. He told her that he wakes up every day with gratitude and treats his marriage like a sacred promise because his wife literally saved his life. He said, if a person can receive a miracle and still betray the giver, that betrayal was inside them long before the gift. His words landed in her chest like a soft truth. It wasn't her fault. His betrayal. Time has a way of revealing what the heart once tried to hide. Months passed, and the woman who once gave everything now stood taller, clearer, not because life became easier, but because she finally chose herself. One afternoon, she received a letter, a simple envelope, no return name. Inside was a folded note in handwriting she recognized instantly. His. He wrote that he was sick again. That stress had taken a toll, and doctors warned his remaining kidney might fail if he didn't change his life. He asked if she could visit, just to talk. She sat with the letter, silent, absorbing every word. But the heart she once offered was no longer his to hold. She didn't cry. She didn't feel anger. What she felt was something every healed soul knows, compassion without obligation. She drove to the hospital, not for him, but for closure. When she walked into the room, he looked smaller somehow, not physically, but spiritually. The weight of his own choices had carved a hollowness into his eyes. "Thank you for coming," he whispered. She nodded. "I'm here to listen." He told her he regretted everything, losing her, betraying her, wasting the gift she gave. He said he thought love was unlimited, that he would always have her. "I took you for granted," he admitted, "because you always stayed."